Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Barr, will you send a thank you to the law enforcement people that work for you for the work that they're doing here across the United States of America?
Certainly.
And I want to thank all the law enforcement across our country. We are an imperfect country, but law enforcement has done they do a good job across our country, and they should be recognized for that. I'm going to ask you a question about Mr. Burnell Trammell from Milwaukee here in just a minute. He was the man who was shot to death at the end of last week. He's the African-American man who was wearing a sign, and he's regularly known around Milwaukee for carrying a Trump for President sign. But I want to share with you what happened in Madison, Wisconsin, so we all understand that this is not a myth about Antifa. So when the riots hit Minneapolis and then extended around the country, they hit Madison, Wisconsin also. And I don't know if you've ever visited Madison, Wisconsin. There's an iconic street there called State Street. Starts at the Capitol and runs all the way down to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And that street, if you go there now, 75 businesses are boarded up as a result of a mayor and city council who would not protect those people. Those people went to the city council last week and they asked for some assistance. The city council, who would not protect their business, they said, no, we're not going to provide you for assistance. Shortly after State Street was destroyed, and by the way, it's disappointing in some of the film that I've seen that the police cruiser that went flaming down State Street was not included in that. But shortly after that, about a week afterwards, two monuments at the state capitol that I used to walk by all the time were torn down. One was of Hans Christian Heg, who was the abolitionist Norwegian immigrant who died at Chickamauga defending the Union and providing for the end of slavery, fighting for the end of slavery here in the United States. The other monument that was torn down, by the way, they took a tow truck and tore it down, was Lady Forward. Lady Forward is there because of women's suffrage. Wisconsin was the first state to pass suffrage back in the early 1900s here in the United States of America. Those were torn down. Just yesterday, a woman, a social worker, who teaches at a local school just outside Madison in Mount Horeb, she was charged with beating a state senator, a Democrat state senator. Her name is Samantha Hamer. Hopefully she will be given justice. But I want to emphasize to my colleagues on the left that if you think you're insulated from Antifa, which is supposedly a myth, you should really think about that, because them and other radicals, they will not spare violence on anyone. Their anarchy is meant to destroy our country. And I would ask you to, if you want to contact a former colleague of mine, State Senator Tim Carpenter, a Democrat, he'll tell you he was beat to a pulp on that night at midnight when they were tearing down those statues. It is not a myth. So, Mr. Attorney General, I would ask Mr. Burnell Trammell, I don't know if our Attorney General Call in Wisconsin or the mayor of Milwaukee are going to pursue what appears to perhaps be a political execution. Are you familiar with that situation in Milwaukee?
You mean the shooting of that gentleman?
Yes.
I've read about it.
If the Attorney General and other law enforcement in Wisconsin do not act, will the federal government study this situation and bring justice for Mr. Trammell and his family?
Yes, we'll certainly study that situation.
This is not a myth. You're hearing it from all over the country, and we're hearing all the time about Portland and Seattle. This happened in Madison, Wisconsin also, where a mayor, a far leftist mayor, proudly carries that banner, sat on a street, actually not a street, a highway with protesters, and shut down traffic. And then State Street, one of the most iconic streets in this state of Wisconsin and Madison was destroyed. And I'm not so sure that those businesses are going to get their businesses back. It is not a myth, folks. What's happening is real across our country, and we need to stop the riots. These are not peaceful protests. These are riots that are happening, and we need to call an end to it. And I hope you, Mr. Attorney General, will work towards that end.
Thank you.